Who here feels they have anger? How does it feel to carry anger in your heart? Does it lessen by month to month? Does it lessen as the months go by? As it seeps into your days and into your nights? Until it consumes everything you once were? Where do you think your heart is, where you hold that anger? Do you feel it's a physical organ? And if you understand where you put the heart, where you put the hate in your heart, many believe that it's a physical organ, your physical heart. But I'm here to tell you that the heart of the soul is to the right. It's not to the left. The physical organ of your heart is to the left. Your soul's heart is to the right, and it quivers when you're not listening. The people that you're angry with, they too are filled with anger. Anger feeds anger. But you are strong and you must forgive. Because there's only one way to the kingdom. But my question to you is, do you know where the kingdom is? The kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven, there's only one way to it. But I have a message. You've been looking for change for this world, but it's not what you actually thought. The kingdom is here and now. The people will rise and find the kingdom is not something you can see with your eyes. It is here within you, inside you. All you have to do is let go of your anguish, your anger, your resentment, and become like children, just as Jesus had taught. And then you will be free like him. He overcame death. He understood the power of where the kingdom is. The kingdom can be built through conflict, but not by oppression, opposition, or destruction. It grows with you as you grow. With every act of love and care and kindness and forgiveness, we have the power to lift the people. We have the power to change. This world will change as the people change. If you lift the people, you lift the world. Then again, you will be free like him. And once you do that, you relieve your own suffering. All Jesus can do is hope that you've heard him and what he's saying to you today. Pray that you can see him as he is see each other as you are, and value each one of yourselves deeply. Do not stay silent anymore and not be heard. Your spirit is your own, and you alone answer for that. Spirit is precious to heaven, it's precious to Jesus, as precious as anyone around you, even the ones you're angry with. I get the question a lot that I can't hear my guides. I just talked to a client today who's getting the soul session, and I came up with an example that maybe you all can understand. The reason you can't hear your guides, I'm going to show you why. If this is muck and dirt and grime, and this is you, and this is all the muck and the anger and the anguish and resentment. Can you see yourself? Can you hear yourself? Can you hear your guides? When it's heavy and covers you, can you hear anything? When I release and become free of the muck, what do you see? You see yourself. You can hear yourself. You can hear your guides. You can hear God. Every day, humans do not think of the present. They only think of the past or the future. They never think of now. You are to follow God, follow your guides. If someone goes against that follow or that pull, you must defy them and get away from them. Leave it behind you, even if you're married, even if it's family, even if it's your work forcing you to take a vaccine you don't want to take. And yes, they will judge you, they will curse you, they will persecute you. But your main goal in life is to find happiness. You won't find happiness by following others who are keeping you off your path that you are meant to follow. So you must follow God. Follow your guides, for they speak on His behalf. And defy and go against anyone that takes you off that path. He is saying, yes, it is okay to walk away from those who keep you off your path. Charissa, how do you walk away from your mother? How did the apostles walk away from their children and their wives and their mothers to follow what they felt deep in their soul was the right way? If they can do it, you can do it. Karen, alien races don't follow religion. They are more advanced in their way of thinking. They believe in a source of truth and knowing and love, but see, that's simply it. They have a knowing, and that's all that matters. And they don't continue to revisit it like this world seems to need to do. There is a knowing. They know. And they don't need it much more than that. When you understand that the people in your life are there to help you learn something, and once you understand that learning is completed, there's no more further learning that needs to take place. So you either move on or you simply enjoy their company. There's one race in particular that doesn't follow religion. They have a knowing. It's an inner understanding of energy, that the energy that created them has their best interests, and that's simply it. They have a knowing. Alien races are above emotions. The same race I was speaking on before, they communicate through empathic and telepathic. Yes, there is words of condensation. There's words that are being expressed, but it's very limited and few. They don't have a full vocabulary as we do here. They communicate through mind, but more of empathic emotion or an empathic understanding. And they don't need policing. They don't have police or authority in this sense, because everyone is policing themselves. There's a knowing of what is to be done and what isn't to be done. So everyone acts accordingly in a mature manner. This past weekend was difficult for me. I stepped out of Earth for a while to kind of feel what has been going on. And as I came back in, it became heavy and I began to cry uncontrollably for a whole day. Excuse me. The anger that fills a person, it is not channeled correctly. It's not forgiven. And that anger then spills out towards others. What I hear most of you doing is a lot of excuses to continue being in toxic environments. I see you coming up with ways to talk it away so you don't have to face it. Oh, but they need me. Oh, but they seek me out. Oh, this, oh, that. Do you feel free when you come up with these excuses? Do you feel at peace coming up with these excuses? So then you must ask, why do you come up with the excuses? Is it simply that you're comfortable to stay? Or too afraid to leave? It doesn't matter who's to blame. It matters what you do with your own self. You have the whole world before you. You have thousands of options. And it's simply taking the first steps to make change towards happiness. Carol, the apostles were just like you. They weren't strong. They learned strength. Are you learning now how to be strong? They were nowhere near being strong. They were weak. They made excuses. But then, when they saw a glimmer of hope, that they could have options, they could have change, they made the first steps. And they followed where the path led them. A situation is scary only if you allow the fear to take hold. Until you eliminate the fear, then you have more control. Do you understand what I mean by letting go of fear to take back control? People who are hurting and don't speak on the hurt choose bad options for themselves. When you choose out of fear, you don't choose the more beneficial option for yourself. And yeah, you come here every Tuesday. And perhaps this is somewhat like a ministry, a gathering. But I never wanted my teachings to be a one-day event, like most churches, where you behave a certain day of the week and then go back to how you were. Your higher self sees right through that, and the people around you see right through that. I want you to try to do something. I want you to try to write a letter to those you feel anger towards. And I want you to find ways to forgive them by the end of the letter. You do not have to hand this letter to them. This is a private matter with you and your higher self. But it's a way for you to see the hurt written out for your eyes to read. people that don't hear, I didn't say listen, I said hear. When people don't hear, they don't listen. And they talk and talk and talk. They do this out of fear because they are not facing their own self. So they talk and they don't listen. And if they don't listen, they never hear. Fear creates fear. One thing Jesus taught was how to hear silence. Can you hear the voice of your guides? Can you hear the voice of God when you're in complete silence? When you listen, truly listen to the silence, can you hear their voice? He's been bringing a lot of memories to me in the last few days. One in particular, and Yvonne thought it was comical because it's very much me. I had forgotten that I was struck by a soldier when I attacked them when they came to get Jesus, to take him to judgment, or what they thought and perceived judgment was for that time. What did you say to me about that?
That don't surprise me.
That don't surprise her.
Not in the least.
But you also said something else. I believe it was something about getting struck, but getting back up. He also brought me a memory of Peter. Peter thought that I would divide the way the men would think. And when I saw Jesus, when he emerged from his death, when death could no longer hold him, and he was able to accomplish what his soul was to accomplish within those time frame, he became angered that me as a woman, was chosen. And he turned that anger and began a path of religious formity within that energy of anger. He saw the apostles as a rock or a brick that would form the church, his church, which was not Jesus's way. It was his way, but it was not Jesus's way. All because of anger towards me. And many generations suffered because of it, because of that anger. When I think back and I have memory of the souls in torment over religion, being burned, their limbs being ripped apart from their bodies, screaming in anguish because they believed and followed what God wanted for them. And his anger created demonic forces that protected these churches. Peter and I were close. We were close at one time. He saw something in me that I don't think he thought was there. I am not one to give up. And the Romans had hurt many people in a village. And they were dying. There was no saving their souls to live. But our goal in life is to help the suffering, whether they live or not. Help them feel better within that suffering, so they're not suffering more than they need to. He wanted to walk away because it seemed easier. And anyone in that situation probably would have done the same. But I convinced him and Paul and Matthew to help me help these people feel a little bit better, even though they had all died that day. Whether that was comforting them as they crossed over, or was feeding them bread or feeding them water. He had a look in his eye that day, and we became friends. He thought I would divide them before I had done this event. And perhaps he still did, but he didn't voice it as much as he did before. He eased up on that. But the day I saw Jesus changed everything. The fact that a woman was chosen. And it shouldn't matter if a woman or man is chosen. A soul is a soul. Earth holds sexes. The planet I spoke of earlier, they don't have conformity of sex. They hold both sexes within them. There's no birthing of a child or a energy of a soul is formatted. They're not birthed like they are on Earth. They're formatted. And it's not a laboratory format, it's an energy. If the energy of the soul manifests and formats a body, the body is formatted and created. And yes, the body grows and learns and gets old, and it's what you would consider old. It's not old as in here on Earth, but it grows and learns as the soul grows and learns. The soul giving the formatted vessel the characteristic and personality of the growth and learning. But there's many worlds that don't follow your way. This is your way here on Earth. But most worlds are not learning from the third dimension of thinking. Which is why it's important to understand that there is realms, planets, races, and worlds out there that have grown in strength and legacy of knowledge, because your race will one day reach their status. So I'm here to tell you not to give up, to continue letting go of fear, understanding that anger will only cause you more unhappy days, and it won't lessen as the months and days go by until you change the way that you think. You can create great energy through anger and cause others around you to suffer through that energy, just as Peter did. It's a simple manifestation of energy. Your thoughts have great power. Jesus' energy is among you already. He is not known to the world as of yet. But I hope that answers your question, Tara. My energy started coming into play, and there's something that I wanted to discuss. Pope Gregory claimed that I was a prostitute 591 BC or 880, sorry. And I was then redeemed in 2016 by the Vatican as an apostle of the apostles and the first to see Jesus, the messenger of the resurrection. And I was already here in 2009. My energy had entered your world in 2009. So I guess they thought we probably should fix this since we know she's here. I didn't find it very kindly that a pope who had no idea who I was deemed me a prostitute, because that's what they did to women. They silenced them, they made them ugly, disgusting, and not worth anything to the world. And part of my energy here is to redeem souls, woman or man. But I see more of a repression with women. It still goes on. Whether your laws follow it or not, it still continues. Where a man feels he is above a woman and can silence her, deem her unworthy. And I'm going to guess 90% of you on this live tonight feel unworthy. So I then want you to ask yourself, who made you feel like that? And then I want you to understand that that person was already filled with anger as his days and months passed him by, or them by. And then I want you to write a letter to that person, even if it's yourself. And I want you to find ways to forgive, because that person was filled with anger. yes, I can be very angry at Pope Gregory for deeming me a prostitute for centuries and centuries and centuries. And still to this day, people aren't aware of my redemption in 2016. But he was already programmed by way of learning how to treat a female. He was already programmed to be a certain way, and he was already filled with anger because he couldn't be his way. Every child grows up to follow what they feel they should be doing. But then certain adults come along to reprogram that to what they should be doing for them, or what they deem that child should be doing, and following in suit as generation upon generation follow a misconception or a miscommunication that hurts many people over time. That hurts many people over time. And I believe that's what Jesus came to teach you guys. There is no fault. They know not what they do, because they do not understand their own souls. So there is no fault at hand by anyone, because they're simply programmed, manipulated, controlled to think a certain way. And they had forgotten who their soul really was. So they are forgiven. Heaven is energy. Heaven is already here, already inside you. When a world awakens and realizes what has been with them the whole time, a Christ consciousness can then ensue and spread. You say you need Jesus more than ever. He is already here. He is inside of you. I don't think you're understanding what that means. There was something that was said about me one time recently. Someone had said that I have a cult. Followers on Facebook apparently are cults now. But I have a cult, and I tell people I have a direct line to God only. No. This cannot be further from the truth. We all have a direct line. Why? Because heaven is inside of you. Your soul is heaven. You can talk to him anytime you want, just as I do. I am nothing special. We all come from source. We all come from one energy consciousness. I was the first to see Jesus. Why did he trust me? That's a good question, besides being his wife. Because I understood the things he said. It didn't confuse me. I didn't allow things in this world to blind me. I didn't allow ego to misdirect me. When he would state something, I saw it in my mind and I knew it was correct. And this is why we bonded. and why he trusted me. Because I seem to understand more than the other apostles did. A lot of them struggled to understand what he was talking about. When we keep being surrounded by people who make us feel unwanted, unworthy over and over again all our life, is it because we are learning? That is one way to look at it. Your soul contracts contain great details as to why you're here, what you're meant to do here. But ultimately, your soul is your own, and you alone will answer for it. So if you are done learning from unwanted energy and feeling unwanted, you alone make that decision. And when you ask to be shown what you're not learning from it, it is like a child asking for answers on a math quiz from their parents. The only one that can move away the muck and guck of understanding learning is you. You're the one learning from it. So you're the one that would need to get with yourself, review in great detail that relationship. What brought you to the energy of unwanting and unworthiness? And understand that you're learning through the person like a mirror. They feel unwanted. They feel unworthy. So they project the energy onto you. So, all in all, you are learning through them, not the other way around. And the reason you feel broken is because you've allowed yourself to feel broken. Because perhaps brokenness brings enlightenment. It's not meant to be looked on as negative, but as an achievement on, I finally feel this, and now I can overcome it and feel this. Happy. I learned something very deep. It is when you absorb it and hold on to it that you are not learning. You have to progress into the next grade of learning. If you are sitting in the classroom, sulking over the answers that you have given yourself, and everyone else in the classroom has gone home, you are the one keeping yourself in that classroom. Jesus is always listening. God is always listening. You are the one that is making yourself not heard. You are using negative words on your behalf. You're using a negative intent on your behalf, so you assume you're not being heard. You aren't using the right words to be heard because you believe in one thing. Philip, there were women around, yes, and they did their everyday teaching and understanding what they were being taught by him to continue that teaching. So if he was teaching and he told us, give out blessings to the others, we would go do that. But it takes a certain soul to fully understand what he means. And many souls weren't at the learning level to understand it fully. It is just the same as if a father had died And the only person that found him was his 8-year-old son. Why would the father entrust that 8-year-old son above all the other adults, the wife, the other siblings? Why did that father entrust that 8-year-old to find his body? Because the son understood something the others didn't. And there was a trust of an agreement made that that son would find the father at that time. Are understood in the sense that your mind can comprehend it and your world of thinking. Jesus had to do the same thing. These were very uneducated people. And the world I came from before I came to Earth to help him on his mission, I was already at a higher level of understanding. So I didn't have a lack of soul education. So I guess I had a certain edge above everyone else in that sense. Things just clicked and made sense when he would talk. And I'd meet others in the crowd that were like me, who understood it right away, but others, it took a little time for them to wrap their minds around what he was saying. I'm very taken back by this world. I see the shift happening from above your world. And it's like a disease. And it's like when someone finds out they have cancer. They either accept it and find ways to help others with it, or they become angry, depressed, and sulk. I see this on your world. There's two different energies intertwining. But this anger has been going on for centuries. It's not just the shift. Kids being bullied in school for being different, for having red hair or having to wear glasses, being overweight. But your world has changed in the sense that words are changing the molecular structure of your environment, where it hasn't done that centuries before, where children were able to muster up the courage to keep going back to school without having a sensitivity to wanting to commit suicide. Your energies here are changing and adjusting, and they're being felt on many levels, which is why these young souls with extra uniqueness have a harder time handling the energy because their molecular structure is changing. There's something that I talked to my client today in her soul transformation about. She felt like she was running out of time. That she had something big she needed to do and she was running out of time. And I see Allison's question about shadow work and speeding up. her father came through to remind her that she's a lot like him. They had the same trials and challenges, and he was able to go through them so that he could show her how to get through them. But she felt like she was running out of time. And I believe souls feel this way when they're here because a life is over like that. It is quick, brisk, and fast. But what a lot of you don't realize is when you're in a lesson, let's say for example you are taking math or history, and that class is an hour each day. And you go to that class for a period of time, you go to that class for a period of time, and eventually you complete that class, and you move on to the next grade. That is how your lifetimes are. If you're studying to learn resilience, if you're studying to learn moderation, if you're studying to learn persistence, with each lifetime, your soul learns more and more within that lesson, and eventually comes to a completion within that lesson, and can move on from that grade. You are a learning soul, and you have forever to learn what you need to learn. There is no speed. There is no time. You don't need to quicken anything, because your soul goes on forever. But here in this realm, a life, your hour lesson goes quick, because that's basically what that is. Each life here is basically an hour lesson within the lesson that you're learning. Whether that's persistence, abundance, sorrow, moderation, worthiness. These are all lessons to be learned in a lifetime, within the hour of each lifetime. So learn at your own pace, or you're going to miss something important. Take your time and don't feel rushed. You have all the time, literally, in the world. And I see that many of you have taken on a lesson of anger. And you're all in the same classroom together. Some of you understand the lesson a little bit more than others. And perhaps you each could help one another out. Reach out to one another. How can I help you with your anger? Maybe we can talk about it. But make sure it's somebody that you are meant to learn from or grow with. And make sure that person doesn't have other intentions. I'm asking for people of pure nature that aren't out to hurt anyone. But you guys are in this group together, and it's time to show kindness help one another. Where you change others. Your tribe is here and now. Our soul ever graduate, or we will always come back to Earth to learn? No. Earth is not the only learning area. There's many worlds, dimensions, levels of learning. And there is no graduating. The soul of God continues to learn. As He grows, we grow. We are always learning. Forgiveness is a process, and it takes practice, but it mainly takes knowing and understanding. Thank you for joining.